Hey everyone, welcome to Reality TV News Update, the place where we bring you the latest updates, fun moments, and behind-the-scenes stories you won't want to miss. The walls of the Big Brother 27 house have seen tears, betrayals, and alliances crumble before, but nothing could prepare fans for the chaos that unfolded this week. It is evident that this game has transformed into a psychological war zone now that the Final Four veto competition has ended and the live feeds provide non-stop tension. After the double eviction that sent Kelsey out the door amid controversy and that jaw-dropping $37 million marriage fine scandal, the remaining house guests Vince, Morgan, Taylor, and Cam are left scrambling for control of the endgame. Every move now is a game-defining choice. And in the center of everything, Vince Pinheiro and Morgan Blake, the most polarizing duo of the season, hanging by a thread as the veto results threaten to rip apart what's left of their alliance. The calm before the veto storm. In the hours leading up to the Final Four veto, the atmosphere in the house felt deceptively calm. Morgan sat quietly in the kitchen, stirring her coffee in silence, while Vince paced across the living room, muttering strategy lines to himself. The two had been riding a complicated alliance since week 6, half trust, half survival pact. While fans initially loved their teamwork, their loyalty had started to crack after Taylor won head of household this week. Taylor had promised big moves only, and her nominations of Vince and Cam were a clear message. Loyalty was dead, survival was all that mattered. Taylor's reasoning was simple, or so she said on the feeds. I love Vince, but if I don't take him out now, he wins. And Cam's been shady with both sides. It's time to secure my spot in the final 3. However, just like Big Brother, nothing is ever simple for long. The veto competition, and a shocking result. The competition, called Clocked Out, tested the house guests' memory and endurance. Each player had to recall exact timestamps of major house events while running across an obstacle-filled backyard course. It wasn't just about memory, it was about stamina, focus, and knowing when to risk it all. According to the feeds, Vince dominated the early rounds, outpacing both Taylor and Cam. His confidence was sky-high until the final round when Morgan unexpectedly pulled ahead after a last-second correction. The crowd watching the feeds erupted as Morgan won the Final Four power of veto by a razor-thin margin. The expression on Taylor's face said it all. Her perfect plan had just collapsed. Well, that changes everything, Taylor said, forcing a tight smile as Morgan hugged Vince in celebration. The veto winner now controlled the fate of the house, and for the first time all season, Morgan wasn't just surviving, she was in charge. The aftermath, a game of broken promises. Immediately after the competition, the feeds caught the strategic scramble. Cam, realizing he was now in danger, approached Morgan with an offer. Look, I know we haven't always been aligned, but if you use that veto on Vince, you're setting yourself up to lose. Taylor's going to take him to Final 2. I'm the only one who'll go after him next week. Keep noms the same, and I swear I'll take you to Final 3. Vince, on the other hand, had a much more emotional pitch. Sitting with Morgan in the storage room, he dropped the walls he'd built all season. You and I got this far when everyone said we'd crash weeks ago. You saved me before. I'll save you next time. I just need one more shot. It was a heart-to-heart that melted even some of the harshest feed watchers. For the first time, viewers saw the raw side of Vince. No bravado, no ego, just desperation wrapped in sincerity. Meanwhile, Taylor was left calculating quietly in the HO room, weighing every possible outcome. Her internal monologue, picked up by the mic as she whispered to herself, summed up the tension perfectly. If Morgan uses that veto, I lose control. I still lose votes from the jury if she doesn't. No good options. Nightfall negotiations. By the time the lights dimmed, the house had split into factions. Morgan sat alone in the hammock, staring up at the string lights, clearly lost in thought. The feeds caught her murmuring to herself, in my own game, I can't believe I'm the swing vote. Meanwhile, Vince and Cam had a tense backyard conversation that quickly turned personal. Cam, you think you've got this in the bag just because you've charmed Morgan? Vince, it's not charm, man, it's trust, something you clearly don't get. Cam, trust? You backstabbed half this house. Vince, and yet I'm still here. The argument ended with Cam storming off, muttering something about karma catching up. Back inside, Taylor tried one last push, a private talk with Morgan, that lasted nearly 45 minutes. Taylor, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. If you use that veto on Vince, I'm putting you in a final 2. I can't win. I love you, but I have to think game first. Morgan asks, and what if your game means that you lose the jury because everyone sees through you? Taylor, then I'll lose with integrity. Morgan, that's no longer how this house works. When the conversation ended, Morgan didn't commit to a plan, but fans noticed something in her tone, a calm determination that hadn't been there before. She wasn't playing defense anymore. She was making the game. Fandom and flashbacks. Social media exploded after the feeds cut briefly to the fish tank. On X, formerly Twitter, the hashtag Veto Storm began trending. Clips of Vince's emotional plea and Taylor's heated conversation with Morgan circulated everywhere. One fan tweeted, "This is giving BB27 Derek versus Cody energy, but with a twist. Morgan is about to flip the whole game." Another wrote, "If Morgan uses that veto, she's securing the biggest underdog comeback of the season, not just saving Vince." Even former Big Brother alumni weighed in. Jasmine from BB24 tweeted, "Taylor is playing too tight. You can't control Endgame like this. Morgan is sitting on power, and she knows it." By the time the feeds returned, the fandom was buzzing with theories. Was a blindside brewing? Would Morgan save Vince or send him home to secure her own path? The morning of the veto ceremony. The morning brought a strange calm. Vince made breakfast for everyone, a gesture that melted some tension, even if it felt forced. Cam avoided him entirely, sticking close to Taylor in the HO room. They spent most of the morning whispering about potential jury votes and how to frame their game moves. But the real story was Morgan. She moved silently through the house, barely speaking, her face unreadable. Every time the camera cut to her, fans filled the chat with theories. Was she pretending to side with Taylor, or had Vince's emotional talk actually worked? At 11:47 a.m., Big Brother's voice echoed through the house. "House guests, the veto ceremony will begin shortly." The ceremony and the decision that changed everything. The ceremony was closed to live feeds, as usual, but when the cameras came back, the house told the story. Vince's face, stunned but smiling. Cam, stone-faced and silent. Taylor pacing the kitchen, muttering under her breath. Morgan, teary-eyed but confident. Morgan had used the power of veto to remove Vince from the block. Taylor was forced to choose a replacement, so he reluctantly suggested Morgan's ally Cam. That sealed Cam's fate, unless something extraordinary happened on eviction night. He was all but gone. The result. What happened next was pure Big Brother magic. Taylor, feeling cornered, lashed out privately in the HO room, calling the move emotional, not strategic. However, Vince, who was never one to back down, stood up for Morgan in front of the group. "Vince, you said this was about big moves, right? Well, she just made one." Taylor, "She made a mistake." Vince, "No, she made history." For fans, that moment defined the episode. Vince had been seen as the loud strategist all season, but here he was the loyal ally, defending Morgan instead of playing for himself. In the meantime, Cam's expulsion appeared certain. He made one last desperate pitch to Taylor that night, begging her to flip the vote and send Vince out instead. But Taylor's expression said it all. She was done playing savior. Looking ahead, the final 3 and beyond. As the house settles into its final week, the lines are drawn clear. Taylor, the fierce competitor who's dominated challenges, but struggled with jury perception. Morgan, the underdog who turned the tables when it mattered most. Vince, the strategist who's been written off too many times to count, and yet refuses to leave. The next head of household will determine everything. Who gets the power to evict, and who earns that coveted spot in the final 2. Inside sources from the feeds say Taylor is determined to win back control. Vince, meanwhile, is training like a soldier in the backyard, preparing for whatever endurance challenge comes next. Morgan, calm and focused, told the cameras last night, "They all thought I was just a pawn, but pawns can become queens." With finale night just days away, one thing's certain. Big Brother 27 has saved its best drama for last. The Final 4 veto wasn't just a house shaker, it flipped the game on its head. Now the same question is being asked by everyone, and it keeps coming up in the feeds. Will Vince and Morgan make it to finale night, or will one final twist tear them apart?